discussion with New York Waterway, Paul Goodman, CEO, DOT, City DOT, and the U.S. Department of Environmental Protection, and the Port Authority. Are they all here?
Yes.
Representatives from everybody's here? Okay. This issue, as you probably know, arose because somebody came to us and told us that he frequently walks around near the ferry terminal and has noticed black emissions coming out of some of the ferries. And he even took a video of some of the emissions.
One of the things that the EPA representative did say is that part of the transportation funds that were granted to Lower Manhattan after 9/11 have been earmarked for upgrading the emission standards of the ferry fleets, and various operators have taken advantage of them, or at least one operator, and I believe it's you guys have taken.
Well, that's what we're here to talk about tonight.
And so that's one of the things that we really want to hear about, is what they're doing.
We have some concrete things to talk about tonight. I know that, first of all, my name is Paul Goodman. I've been here before the committee a number of times, but for those of you who are unfamiliar, I am the chief executive of BillyBey Ferry Company, which manages the World Financial Center ferry terminal on behalf of the Port Authority. I do business under the name New York Waterway. That's the more familiar name to most people. So not only do we manage the terminal, but we are, of course, the principal user of the terminal, and those are primarily our boats and that of our sister company, Port Imperial Ferry Company Corporation, that comes into the terminal. And I know that this issue of emissions at the terminal has been on the agenda for a couple of your meetings. I want you to know that it's been on our agenda.
But also noise has been on the agenda for several years, so just not to forget about that issue.
Yeah. I'd like to get through things, and we're happy to entertain questions when we're done. We have a number of people here to field those questions. The issue of emissions, while it's been on your agenda, the last couple of meetings has been on our agenda as well for many a year, and we're really pleased to be able to report the results of a lot of initiatives that we've been pursuing over the last couple of years tonight. So let me introduce a couple of people who along the way will help explain what we're doing and answer questions later on that are more technically versed perhaps than I am. From New York City DOT, sitting in the back here is Lou Calcagno. Next to him is Patrick Bolton from New York State Energy Research Development Authority, known as NYSERDA. Don Rasuti from Seaworthy, which is a consultant to NYSERDA on this project. My colleague Donald Malloy is here as well, and Janet Cox from the Port Authority. So we're always interested in trying to find ways to address the environmental impact of the ferries. We think of ourselves, I must say, in the first instance as an environmentally friendly alternative form of transportation. In general, we carried 8 million people last year, and that's 8 million people who were not in cars or not in buses. And so, but we do burn diesel fuel, and we do have emissions, and going back to at least 2004, we've been working with DOT and NYSERDA to evaluate technologies that are available in the marketplace to reduce the emissions from our ferries. And just this year, really culminating only this summer with securing the last bit of funding for it, we've embarked on a program on all 31 boats that are in the combined New York Waterway ferry fleet of installing diesel oxidation catalysts on all 31 of those boats. That program is underway. We're actually through a majority of the boats as we speak, and we'll be completing that portion of the program probably by the end of the year.
What does that do?
The diesel oxidation, that's where I'm going to have to turn to the experts. That's the purpose. That's why this multi-million-dollar project, this component of the project is entirely funded by a grant from the FTA. You were referring earlier to funds that have been earmarked for this purpose. This component of the program, which is not as exciting to us as the second part of the program I'm going to get to in a second, is entirely funded by the federal government through NYSERDA and city DOT.
It's an active treatment device. It's actually used at the exhaust end of the vessel. Yes, you might have heard of DPFs, diesel particulate filters. All of this was an outgrowth of the trucking industry and EPA's requirements to reduce particulates. In the marine environment, there is not a lot of after treatment devices that are applicable to the marine.
The second part of the program, which I think is particularly applicable to the incident that was observed a couple months ago with the black smoke, which emanated from a particular class of vessel, the big monohulls. I've been here before, gentlemen. So we were able, and this only happened again this summer, this funding for this part of it, particularly in this budgetary environment, was uncertain up until this summer, but through the good efforts of Patrick and Lou, we were able to secure the additional money in conjunction with an almost $1 million contribution on our part to replace all of the engines on those 9 older vessels. Those new engines are what are called Tier 2 engines. They're the most environmentally advanced engines one can acquire in the market today. They are really actually Tier 3 capable when Tier 3 is not a standard that yet exists in the marketplace, but they're what are called Tier 3 capable because of the fact that they are being installed in conjunction with the very same diesel oxidation catalyst that we talk about when the eventual Tier 3 standards are promulgated. That's what we are told it will entail. So those 18 engines for those 9 older boats that are the particular source of some of the more of the exhaust problems that were observed, those engines have been ordered. That program is fully funded. The agreements between us and NYSERDA have been signed. The engines are going to be delivered, we're told, sometime by the end of the year, and we have a program we're working on for them to be installed over the first half of 2012. And unless I left something out, that's an important point that I didn't bring out myself, and that is that the 9 older vessels are being repowered with new Tier 2 engines, but the remaining fleet has Tier 1 engines, which in conjunction with the diesel oxidation catalyst. So they're a significant step forward in terms of the level of environmental impact. There will no longer be these so-called Tier 0 engines. There will be either Tier 1 or Tier 2, really Tier 3 capable engines throughout the fleet.
And the other thing that
Half a dozen times a day.
We have quite a chain of responsibility here. Obviously, you manage and own and use the ferry terminal, but you manage the ferry terminal. Then we have Port Authority, who has the agreement with you.
Right.
And then you have the BatteryPark City Authority, who has the agreement with the Port Authority. Do either of those 2 organizations inspect to see what's going on?
Inspect the
boat?
facilities?
The facilities,
Yes.
the emissions, any of these things that we've noticed, are you guys responsible for noticing any of that and bringing it up to the company?
Well, we monitor and maintain and report to the Port Authority everything related to the terminal and the operation there. The emissions testing that was done, I don't recall whether that was shared but that's.
But the Port Authority's been aware of the NYSERDA program and BillyBey and New York Waterway's efforts in that program. We've also been in contact with NYSERDA and New York City DOT, so we were aware that the program was ongoing. It's just that it didn't move as quickly as we would have liked to have it move. It's a tremendous amount of money from the grant as well as from BillyBey Ferry Company in terms of the fleet.
How many?
Well, we see this black smoke coming out, current fleet, and I know you're going to upgrade them. What am I going to see middle of next year? me, is that
Well,
thing that's coming in today, is it giving me 100 grams?
We think that you will see vast improvement in the emissions and the degree of smoke that these 9 older boats emit. And we are going to be testing and evaluating, and they will be compliant with the. These are manufactured by, new engines manufactured by Caterpillar. They are the most, I mean, they went through a rigorous program through NYSERDA. They're the most advanced engine you can buy on the market today. I don't know what more, we could
No, I
suggest.
appreciate that. I'm just trying to get our expectations in line.
I think you will see, without trying to put a number to it, a substantial improvement in the in reduction of emissions and smoke and odor, but I can't quantify it for you in a number that you would find reliable, that I would think would be reliable.
What you could expect with a DOC installation with a Tier 2 engine could be an 85% reduction in particulates compared to what we have now.
And that's really what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
That's significant.
It is. It's very significant.
Actually, the issue that's actually been on this table for years that I think you might have been involved with, which is the noise, and specifically how much of it will be improved, and also how much of it currently can be controlled by human behavior. We hear month after month complaints about the engines revving rather than coming into the point. They rev and they sit there, and I think that probably exacerbates the emissions situation. And I think that legally they can stay there for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, but we've been asking repeatedly if they cannot pull in and rev, which is, I think, at the root of some of the noise problems as well.
They don't tie up. They don't have time in their schedules to tie up each time they land. So they actually do, you're quite correct, they run at a higher RPM in order to maintain a safe contact with the pier than they do when they're cruising in the river. So just to establish that contact, they do rev at a higher RPM than normal. Normally, under normal tide conditions, it's not maintained at the highest of levels to maintain that, but it is what's necessary for maintaining the safe.
The same boats that made the noise that we had this initial complaint 3 years ago are still running. The LaGuardia is running, all the old boats. I know you're going to fix them and everything, but I was sitting in the park the other day, just like this man Jeff said. I sat there yesterday. I could not sit on the boat that was on the bench that was close to the ferry that pulled in from Hoboken, which is not residential where they pull in, by the way, because I go there every day. But anyway, where the boat pulls in, they speed in. The smell and the noise was so great that I left the playground. If he's talking about the same playground that I'm talking about, I left the playground. Every single solitary morning at 6-something, I am up because of the noise from the ferries. It's a simple thing. Either tell us that you're going to get ferries that don't make noise so we don't have to have this meeting every goddamn year. I mean, it's crazy. It's nuts. We're being inconvenienced. Nobody in a residential area, and if it is Williamsburg, they will be complaining. I can guarantee you. I'll bet on it. And the other boats on the East River, they are not in a residential area that go over. The ferries go to Long Island City. It's all industrial. It is not a residential area like we are in. Nowhere. I've done research on it.
And no disrespect, Janet, but when I met you 3 years ago, you said you did all this intensive study, that this is the right spot for the terminal, and you insisted on everything was investigated. But we're sitting here 3 years later, the fumes, the noise, we still have an issue. So what's going to happen? Is this going to keep on going for another 3 years, or?
The same ferries are
It's
being
still
used.
noisy. It's really noisy. It's still noisy. It's 5:40 in the morning. These boats are way too close to the seawall.
They're right next to the wall.
They're right next to the seawall.
We've asked for a different route. We did it for 1 month or 2 months, then the same old boats came back, and they come directly over, and they speed up, and all the smell comes up, and then you're not around, but we live there.
It's awful. That terminal should be moved into the
All I can say is to reiterate.
Such a retrofit occurs, and I would like our agencies to enforce that. Not the company, but the government agencies that are responsible for keeping this area fit, keeping our children safe, keeping all of us safe from these types of pollutants. I do not blame the boat company. I say it's up to the agencies that are responsible for keeping our area safe for all residents. I don't want to hear of my residents being woken up all the time or not being able to sit and children in danger. And I think this is something we need to address sooner.
Right. Hallelujah, I believe so. That's very revenue.
Yes,